Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition, another Friday night of Heart of the Matter. We are so excited to have you guys here. Man, we got such a great response from last week's show. Thank you all that joined. You know, the entire month of November, we are going to be talking about families. What a better month, the month with Thanksgiving in it, to talk about families. So starting out from last week's show, we talked about blended families. Man, there's a lot to unpack when it comes to blended families. First of all, it's difficult enough just having a family. But when you start combining families and combining marriages and combining children and combining in-laws from different folks and different places, and it can be a little bit daunting at times. So again, you know, on Heart of the Matter, we like to get to the tough questions. So what we did at the end of last week's show, we asked some of y'all to write in and send us some, you know, real life questions maybe that you'd like answered about blended families. You know, how would you handle this, or how would you handle that? And we got some, and they're really, really interesting ones. We hope that, you know, even though maybe if you didn't write in, we hope these will help you. Maybe it's something that you have thought about. So let's get started with tonight's show. And like I said, we want to go through some of these questions, but just, you know, as an overall, Fran, you know, when we talk about blended families, where do you, just at a high level in general, believe that the most of the challenges, because I mean, look, face it, we find challenges as pastors in regular marriages, right? But what are some of the uniqueness of challenges, the things that are unique about blended families? What are just come off the top of your head, do you think, outside of the questions we got asked?
I think if you're going to have a blended family, I think you really need to take time and put a lot of time in the beginning.
A lot of thought?
Yes, a lot of thought, a lot of time, making sure everybody's familiar with one another, spending time with one another, bonding before you get married.
Hey, let me ask you guys a question out there tonight. I want to get you to participate a little bit. What do you think about a questionnaire guide that maybe we can create for people that are considering a blended family? Like Pastor Frannie was saying, the things, maybe the discussions, maybe that's what we could call it, the discussions that you need to have before getting into a blended marriage.
Right.
What do you think about that? You think that would help you? Give us a thumbs up. If you think that's something that will help out, give us a thumbs up. You know, we really, you know, we got a lot of great people in our church. We got a lot of great people around us. We don't mind, and we love to create things that helps. But we want to know if it's things that you feel would be useful. So maybe that's something we could do, right? Because I'm with you. I think that really talking through, like last week, you know, some of those tough, you know, who's the disciplinarian? That's one of the questions we got for today. You know, who's the disciplinarian? Who's going to spank them? Who's not? I mean, I think you really got to talk through some of that stuff. I've seen, you know, in blended families, I've seen it be the demise, you know. Also talk to that mom, you know, because a lot of times when you get married or you decide to go into this blended family, it even changes the role of a wife a bit, right? Because it's hard, you know, the Bible talks about the wife submitting and making her husband first.
Right.
Man, that's a tall order when it comes to, you know, a blended family, right?
It is, because you had the children first.
And they're yours.
Right. And now you're saying that I got to put you before them. That can be difficult, even so for the child.
Yeah. And there's so many things to think about. Well, what happens if you're Muslim and you have a child and both of y'all are Muslim, and then all of a sudden you get divorced and now your wife or your husband is going to go marry a Christian? Man, that's, I mean, totally different faith, right? What if you're a Catholic? And, you know, my wife, when we got married, I was a Catholic. Well, actually, I became a Baptist.
Yeah,
but I was a Catholic and she was a Baptist. Very different, right? These are real different dynamics. I know y'all just look at us and go, well, she was black and I was white. Well, that can be a dynamic, but these are all the things, you know, we wasn't blended, but we were blended.
Yes.
Right? So let's get into some of these questions for tonight. I really want to get to these and we kind of want to talk to them. So the first one comes to us from a young lady, and she asks this question: how do you deal with kids who want to reach out to connect, or reach out and connect with their biological parent that has never been present in their lives, and you know that they would be a bad influence on that child. Maybe you do. Maybe you've kept tabs on the biological parent. Maybe you know they're not a good person. They're not living the right life. And you know that if your child met them or got to know them, that they would be a bad influence. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start out and then I'm going to let Pastor Frannie interject. But one of the things I'm going to tell you, and I think you and I agree on this violently, is you gotta, first of all, are we talking about an adult child? I know that sounds like an oxymoron, right? What I mean by an adult child is a child that's over the age of 18 that is still living in your home. Meaning that child could pack up and leave if he don't agree with you, versus a child that is still under your supervision and under your roof, right? That you're still parenting that child. So what are some of the challenges that you see there? So when we think about that.
You're talking about the younger children?
The younger. So we'll start out with the younger ones, and then we'll get to the older ones.
The younger children, because they're still in your home,
mm-hmm.
I would probably have a conversation with the other parent if they were just adamant about getting to know them, or even maybe detour them and try to wait till they're a little older.
Right.
Depends on the child and their maturity.
Right. That's
one thing I would do. I would also try to meet with the parent, the other one, and see if they matured any since we split,
mm-hmm.
and if they're any better. Because most of the times you get divorced because there are problems.
Right.
I mean, you could have changed, and they could have had a drug addiction.
Right.
That's something I think you would want to know before you subject that child to it, even though they want to know them. Any child want to know their natural parent because that's who they are.
Right. I think one thing that I find that we have to be careful with is your opinion that they're a bad influence. If a parent has a record, if they've been arrested, if a parent goes from job to job, if a parent goes from home to home, in other words, if that parent is not stable, what you got to always remember, it is your number one job as a parent to protect your child.
That's right.
That's number one. You got to protect that child. So even if that means protecting them from their biological parent, right?
A lot of people don't agree with that.
Right.
So that's their father. That's their mother.
Right.
I say that they need that protection from them if they're just not able to be mature or responsible enough to be around them. And all the things and you've tried to do, morals you've tried to instill, to be just wiped away because they have influence. That is their biological parent.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree with Pastor Frannie. You have to, you got to think about your child. And especially if you know that biological parent would be a bad influence. Another thing I think some parents do, because they want them to be part of that influence, they bring it up. Don't bring it up. Don't bring it up, especially if you know that. Now, let's get on to the adult child, because that's a whole different ballgame. When an adult child begins to inquire and ask you, that means there's something there. And I don't think any kid should be kept, especially if they want to know their biological parent once they become an adult,
right,
even if you know that it would be a bad influence.
Right.
I do. I think that what you got to do in that instance is you have to use real clear communication. You have to really start talking to your child and saying things like, how, if the roles were reversed, if I were your child and you were my parent and you knew this, this, and this, would you expose me as my parent, knowing that as my parent, it's your number one job to protect me? How would you handle exposing me to that parent? And I think that's very vital, that you get your kid thinking and understanding that you merely have their best interest at heart, and it's not that you want to keep them away.
Right. It's actually it's another form of protection, because you don't want them to be surprised,
right,
or hurt,
right,
because they have these preconceived notions of what the parent may be like,
right.
So yeah, I think communicating beforehand is huge.
Yeah, and I think some of y'all want to keep your child away from that biological parent because you don't want all the truth about you to come out. And that's really not good. That's really not good. You know, if you've done some things in your child's life that kept them from that biological parent, if you were part of the issue, you need to be very forthright with your child. You need to be very forthright. My mom played all kind of games with my dad, so my dad couldn't see me. She played games with my father. And my whole life growing up, everybody in my family told me what a no good person my father was. And then once I got older and the truth came to light, my dad was actually the one with integrity and character, and my mom was the one that really was shady on that side. So you got to be careful, because then when that happens, it's you know, you've been living this lie the whole time, and that can build real bitterness and resentment towards the parent. So again, you know, we said at the top of the show, these are about having difficult conversations. So you got to think about that. So that's that one. The second question that we got was the complications that come from managing and handling finances in a blended family. The complications that come from handling and managing money in a blended family. You know, this really goes to, you know, how far along are you? You know, if you're, let's say you're 23 and the guy's 25 and both of you have kids from other people, but you're still kind of young. I don't think at that point it really matters. Or if you had young married, because you're starting out in life. I think under that situation, you need to manage your finances and handle your finances just like a normal married couple would. I really think that, because one thing we teach, finances need to all be together. Finances need to be managed together. Now, the one thing that you got to remember is that when you marry, and I'm talking to the men now, when you marry a woman, or women, when I'm talking to women, I'm sorry, when you marry a man that has children from another woman, you need to understand that when you get married in a blended family, once you say I do, you have taken on equal responsibility for the child support for those kids he had from another marriage. So don't think, oh, no. Yes, yeah, you will. Because they're going to garnish his wages if he's not paying. They're going to come after him if he's not paying. They will put him in jail if he don't pay. So understand, you really need to talk that out, especially about other children. Now, if you're older, let's say take me and my wife. If my wife were to pass away today and I ended up getting in a relationship with another woman, I really believe because of our lives and the extent of our lives, what I have built with my wife as far as finances, at that very point, when I meet this other woman and make a decision, she's going to come into my life. I think that the best thing to do at that moment is talk about what I'm worth. I don't really know. I don't believe in prenuptial agreements. I actually think at that very point, you give your children what their inheritance would be. And if you don't have it to give, let's say your investment, all your money's tied up in a house, where you make it abundantly clear to that woman and you put it in writing. I don't call that a prenuptial agreement. I call that an heir-to-heir trust that this goes to my kids. Look, if I go before Pastor Frannie, whoever gets Pastor Frannie's going to get, they're going to be okay.
Not too much.
Right? So I don't want some clown getting my kids' inheritance, right? So whoever this loser is, she decides to go out with after me, she needs to lay down the go. No, I'm just joking. Well, what we're saying is these are complicated situations. And again, I don't want to go back to the same solution, but the real solution is that you have conversations. And let me say this about blended families in general, as far as solutions go. You guys need to find a mentor. If you're going to be in a blended family, you need to have somebody that you can get with before you decide to get married, before you decide to tie the knot, before, if you believe in shacking up, before you start shacking up. You need to get somebody that you could share how you feel about these things, how you feel about children, how you feel about your other relationships, how you feel about finances, how you feel about things moving forward. You got to have those conversations, right?
Beforehand, not later.
What else on the finances? Did I miss something?
Financial. I think you was kind of talk about the estate planning.
Right.
That's pretty much what you're talking about. Pretty much like planning ahead.
Right.
And then there's no surprises if something should happen to either one of you.
Right.
It's already been discussed, analyzed.
What was the thing you were telling me about yours, mine, and ours?
Oh, okay. That's for blended families. Now they're saying, some of the research is saying that you don't put everything together. You have 3 accounts, his, yours, and mine.
Right.
And because the reason why they say to do that is because, say, one of you have child support, one of you have inheritance,
right?
One of you have taxes or insurances,
right?
Overseas. They're saying to put them in these different accounts, I guess, so you won't have those problems. This is mine, or that was for my kid. That was my kid's inheritance, and your kid ended up with it. So they're saying now that you have these 3 accounts, which I thought was a lot to deal with, but they say that's one of the ways that they're advising people to do it now.
Yeah. I don't agree with that. I think all the money needs to come together. I think that it really needs to be designated and talked about and decided in the very beginning. Because I believe that even though you're a blended family, once you make a decision to come together before God, before a minister, and the Holy Spirit, I think you need to move together forward as the same way. And I think that's the only way that you could do that. But yes, you do got to talk about those other things.
Yes, because I think his, yours, and mine is going to travel all the way throughout the marriage and everything.
Right. So you got to be careful with that.
Yes.
So make sure, again, if you're going into a blended family, you've got to have these hard conversations about money. You really, really do. And don't be afraid to have them. Well, I don't know. What if I lose them because of this?
To compromise to keep, you've already lost.
What you compromise to keep, you've already lost. Don't make compromises. I talk to people that get married all the time. We go through it, put it all out on the table, and it never fails. After they get married, oh, well, I forgot about this $500,000 that I owed over here. Really? How did you forget about that? People, especially in the dating process, really get fearful of revealing their dirty little secrets. That's why you need to have a mediator. You need to have a mentor. You need to have somebody in the middle. Because remember, it's not about lying or telling the truth. There's always your side, there's their side, and then there's the truth. And the truth is always in the middle. All right? Number 3, we talked about being the disciplinarian. This is a difficult one. Mm-hmm. It really, really is, because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are. If that man or that woman spanks your child just a little bit too much, notice I said your child, right? I know you discipline them, but that's my child, right?
Right.
And we heard that before. And what ends up happening with the whole my child theory, that comes out while the discipline's going on. So what now does the kid know he has?
The upper hand.
He has the upper hand because he or she has now created division. And then what will happen, like I used to do with my stepfather, I wanted my stepfather to hit me. Why? Because I wanted to whoop his behind. And if he hit me, I was going to whoop his behind like I did at 16 years old. Took him out on the back porch and whooped his behind. So what did I do? I would antagonize him. I would, provoke him. I would do those things. Why? Because I knew that my mom and my dad were not on the same page relative to that. Now, here's the funny thing. My dad was okay with him disciplining me. It was my mom that wasn't okay with it. Because he could only hit me a certain kind of way. Now, she could go get the tree and beat me with the tree. But if he hit me a little bit of a different way, it was a problem. I'm telling you, listen to me. Talk about it. Talk about it. Wives, if you want the man to be a disciplinarian, talk to him in the bedroom about how he does it. Don't talk to him in front of the child. If you make a decision to let him be the disciplinarian and he does something you don't like, wait till he's done. He ain't going to kill your child. I know the child sounds like they're dying. They don't ever die. I beat mine about this close to death. They don't ever die. No matter how much you try to kill them, they don't die. It'll be okay. My point is, don't do it in front of that child. Don't, and let me tell you this thing too. My daughter Aisha used to do this. My daughter Aisha does not believe in discipline. My daughter Aisha can't even be in the room when you're disciplining another child. That's how much she don't believe in it. If you know that you give that vibe off, right? Don't be in the room when it's going on if you can't handle it. Now, for me and my wife, again, we're not blended, but the discipline thing was never an issue. We both would pull the tree up and whoop their behinds. We were in violent agreement on that.
Same on that.
But I'm going to tell you this, and hear me out. If you allow children to go in your life, in y'all's life, and go undisciplined, they're going to continue to poke the bear, right?
Oh yes, amen.
What, you want to add anything to that one?
No, just really, really poke the bear.
Poke the bear?
Poke the bear. They're gonna poke it constantly.
Oh, they're gonna poke it. Okay,
yes.
Right. So the solution here, again, back to the same thing. It's clear communication. Talk about who's going to discipline the child. But Pastor, what if she don't want me to discipline the child? Or here's another one. Matter of fact, we're going to end right here. We're going to finish on this one tonight because I think this is important. What about when the other parent that don't live in the house don't want you disciplining their child? We didn't talk about that. That becomes a problem. You're going to have to go have a conversation with that parent. And if you believe in disciplining, that parent's going to have to deal with that, especially if the court is here. Now, what the other parent's going to do is they're going to try to take you to court. So if you have a parent that don't want that person disciplining the child, what I would do is I'd let the parent discipline their own child. And I would never, ever let that child know it. And I would tell that other parent, if you tell my child that my husband can't discipline him, I'm going to let them discipline him. But what I'm going to do, because you don't want them doing it, I'm going to honor what you say and I'll discipline them. But if you ever let my child know they have the upper hand, that's going to cause division in my house, then, and only then will I go over you on that. So again, it comes, right, that very clear communication. And you also need to keep records. I mean, if your other half is dating somebody or with somebody that has a record or is not a good person, you need to bring that to the courts. All right? So for the last one tonight, we're going to talk about estate planning in remarried couples. Estate planning in remarried couples. This was another question. You know, this always comes in. I'm going through this right now with my father. My father recently passed away. He didn't leave a will. He's got a wife that's not my mom that came into the picture long after my dad. My dad was like 60-something years old before, you know, when he married her. And, you know, they come in and they think they're entitled to everything. Well, there's not. There are a lot of laws around it, but I'm going to let you know this. And this is all I want to say on this. I won't take a long time. If you are of that age, and even if you're not, you never know where death is, you need to write a will. If you are in a blended family, you have to sit down and write a very clear will. I want Josie to have my 1979 Buick Skylark. I want Petey Boy to have my safety deposit box named this, and this at SunTrust Bank. I want Judy to have my land in North Carolina. You got to be specific, and you got to say who gets what, down to bank accounts, down to actual bank accounts, right?
Yes, totally agree with that. It just makes it easier when you're trying to pass along assets and things. And it's just best to just do it up front. Like I said, it keeps everybody in good spirits. You can actually bury someone, or, you know, and have the family love and not have all these different things going on when you should be mourning and being close and loving with one another and helping one another through it.
Yeah. And I also want to say, while we're on you know, estate planning and what have you, there's nothing that grieves my spirit more than when I see somebody pass away and people go on Facebook and have to get a GoFundMe account to bury somebody. Let me tell you something. If you're under the age of 30 or even under the age of 40, listen to Pastor. Term life insurance, it's very cheap.
It is.
But in most instances, you can get a $20,000 term life insurance policy for $7 or $8 or $10 a month. It's very cheap, and your family don't have to go through that. If you have kids, try to get enough term life insurance. This is just if you happen to suddenly die, to leave them something, and then write that out how you want that left as well. It's never good to bury anybody, but I can tell you, my wife has been through a long probate with her mom. I'm going through a long probate with my father. We are watching literally millions of dollars of lawyer fees being spent on these cases. It's really a tragedy that you work all your life and then your hard-earned money ends up going to a lawyer just because you don't properly plan. And let me tell you something, there's nothing worse for your biological children to come to your homegoing celebration, and because you married somebody, they now feel like a redheaded stepchild. They don't even feel like they belong there. And that's not a good feeling. So write a will, let them know that you thought about them, let them know that you cared about them. I don't care if it's, I'm going to leave you my gold chain. It just says something when you know that your parent thought about you and that they cared about you.
Amen.
Okay? And when it comes to these blended families, again, another thing, solution, you got to over-communicate. You got to over-communicate. If you're coming together as a blended family, especially if you're a little bit older, over-communicate about what you expect to go to who and how you expect things to be done in the event either one of you or both of you together should go home to be with the Lord. Very important. Okay? I hope you enjoyed the show tonight, the whole month of November. We are going to be talking about families. We talked about blended families. On the next show, next Friday, we're going to talk about single parenting and family. Man, that's a tough one. Being a single parent today, being a single mother, or being a single father, it's a tough road to hoe. We want to talk to you about that. We want to get to some solutions around challenges being a single parent and some solutions to single parenting. And we want to cover that next week on The Heart of the Matter.
Thanks for watching tonight. If this show has been a blessing to you, help us be a blessing to others. There are two major ways you can do that. The first way is your financial support. We'd love for you to partner with us. With as little as $10, you can help us reach about 1,000 people. That's pretty amazing, right? Every dollar helps us get this message to the world. So just go to ltmorlando.org/THM to give today. The second way to show your support is by liking, sharing, and subscribing on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at LTM Orlando. Your social support goes a long way. Thanks again for watching tonight, and we'll see you next week on The Heart of the Matter.